pleasure to be here, of course. I have a long title that tries to get the context out of this. So it's Precision Medicine Research and Translational Medicine, how genomics, bioinformatics, and the world's largest popGen program is coming together to change healthcare in UAE. My name is Tiago Magalhães, and I am the VP for Bioinformatics at M42. So M42 is actually the largest healthcare company in the Middle East. The motto or the vision is where innovation meets health. And it's the largest company in the UAE, as I said. It's present, namely through our Diavram branch, which is dialysis in 26 countries in the world. It has 20,000 employees, and it's an organization that has many different aspects of the healthcare, which is a large advantage when you're talking about translation, about genomics, because the fact that you have all the healthcare system and doctors and engineers and software development allows us to put it all together in a way that otherwise it would be very difficult to do. So this is a bit of all the entities or assets that sometimes they are referred to. Again, basically hospitals, large genomics, large AI departments, software development, a clinical trials company. We have an environment science company that does very interesting metagenomics and ocean links with OceanX and other companies around the environment. And also a wastewater company that is sampling and monitoring the wastewater in Abu Dhabi, a project that is actually very interesting and that uses a lot of bioinformatics, although I will not be talking about it now. What I will be talking about is about the Emirati Genome Program, which is what right now is the largest popGen program in the world. And the idea of that is to sequence all Emiratis, which is 1 million individuals. And I know this is a long slide, but I'm going to try to it. So the main idea, of course, is a better care in UAE, and this idea that the popGen goes clinical. And this is kind of a difference into some other programs like UK Biobank or maybe the initial Decode program, where it was very hard to bring that into the clinic or into the patients. The idea here from the UAE government, which is the owner of and by the way, that's important. So the UAE government is the owner of the data and has contracted M42 to execute the data. And so we are the entity that is executing this program. Anyway, so the UAE wants this population genome program to go clinical with this idea that you sequence once and you use for life. And so you will be using this in many different aspects, like pharmacogenomics, premarital screenings, genomic screenings for the population, gene panels, whenever doctors would want to request a gene panel, and newborn screening as well. The genetics, of course, inside would be leading to treatments and cures for disease, if we can get there. And of course, there is also an idea to get a business opportunity in the sense that this data could be used for startups, could be used for kind of a genomic oasis is the buzzword that the public policy is now trying to establish. The idea that such a large data set could, of course, be used in many development in many people that have already even talked about it here. So about the uniqueness of DGP, and this might be a bit on the genetic side, but I am in the wrong, in the right place to do that. So we are doing 3 different platforms: Illumina, MGI, and Nanopore. Nanopore is long reads, as someone said, it was invented in Oxford. And we have 100,000 genomes from long reads, which is by very, very, very far the largest in the world. And we also have 80,000 genome, all methylome coming from Nanopore, methylation, which of course is also one of the largest in the world. Something very important is the fact that there is a very strong clinical records related to this. So for 10 years, the UAE has been recorded data capturing all the encounters in the hospitals, and that has been together into a platform, and that is the phenotype coming out of it, which is very deep. Phenotype, of course, is real world evidence, so it's not like a table that would be complete in its plenitude, but it's very deep. Very deep. Then, of course, is the first Arab population at this scale. When people are talking about diversity, this will just massively, is a massive explosion in diversity of genomes sequenced in the world. And then three kind of technical details, which are more than details. One is that because of the consanguinity in population, that means that we have way more power of discovery in terms of genetics here. And then you have a very strong expansion in population because 60 years ago the country was around 80,000 people, and now it's 1 million, which means that was a very strong founder effects. And then you have large families. And so that all together means that this is a very strong genetic data set. This is just the impact of the GP. Of course, you have the volunteers. Data is giving back to them. Pharma biotech, very strong appetite for this data set. Research, a very strong list of things that you can imagine. And the popgenomics goes clinical as well. And I'm not going to go into detail on this. So this is the lab. Two of the people that are responsible for each one of these sections, the non-ONT and the Illumina. Currently, we have 21 NovaSeq 6000 and 15 NovaSeq X Plus, and 9 Nanoport was 42, but we have, since we have kind of finalized more or less our ONT package, we are now downgraded a bit from 42 to 9. So this is the bioinformatics pipelines, which I'll be very happy to discuss in detail if anyone wants to, but I'm sure not that many people would want to. And this is just 7 applications that are currently being developed. And again, it's that idea, the popGen goes clinical. And again, some of you might remember Kari Stephenson from Decode saying that he wanted to provide women that he knew were double mutants for BRCA1, BRCA2, and that likely would get breast cancer, but he couldn't. I mean, this was 10 years ago. Now they have set up like a database where people can go and look at it. But here is different, right? The government wants to actually use this in the clinical setting. And again, the idea that sequence once and can use in many different programs, and premarital screening, pharmacogenomics, HLA registry for bone marrow or blood drives, genomic screening, PRS scores in the clinical, genetic testing, and rare disease testing of trios, which is, of course, very relevant in a country that has one of the highest birth rate defects in the world. So this is with a bit details on the premarital genetic screening. So 6% rare diseases globally, and the UAE is ranked 6th globally. And so the idea is that couples that want to get married, they'll do premarital screening. Now, the first genetic or premarital screening was Tay-Sachs disease in the 70s in New York, actually, and it was one marker, one disease. But now, because of whole genome sequencing, you can do many more markers, and so on. That's exactly what we are doing there in Abu Dhabi. So 570 genes, 84 plus conditions, and of course this can be adapted, can be adjusted because the sequence is there, and so you can iterate, you can get feedback, you can understand, of course, that there will be many more variants identified in population. There will be unique, so you can readjust that and match the population and move from there. So this is first data. This was a poster that was just presented at the SSG last week in Denver. The first thousand couples that were presented. So the 84 genetic disorders and 11 percent of the couples are at risk. Then they were referred to genetic counseling. Can be IVF is a possibility, and we were able to do 88% of this automatically without having to go through any manual curation. When it's needed, namely positive cases, always goes to manual curation. So pharmacogenomics is another one of such examples of important programs. Again, this has been called for any Emirati. So any doctor that would want a pharmacogenomics report can ask, and it will receive immediately the report kind of online. Is a program that is being implemented. Of course, as always, implementation of this in the clinic has its own challenges, but the report, VCF report calling and report on the doctor's desk is already implemented. And again, in ASHG, we presented some validation and benchmarking between these three different technologies, because we have the three different technologies, it adds another layer of complexity, and this is just to prove that everything is okay. Of course, so I talked about implementation in the clinic. The popGen goes clinical. You can imagine that this large data set has a lot of human genetics, keeps on giving, like the previous person talking here mentioned. And I actually was changing these slides as I was seeing the talks today to put some of like GLP-1 mutants. Someone mentioned that we could check GPL1 mutants and then understand from the phenotype what's happening, and I just kept adding some of the ideas from this talk. So now I'd like to mention something which is very, very powerful in this data set, and that's the idea that this is popGen, and for people that are this very educated crowd know popGen, but this is actually more than popGen. This is popFam, because this is not population, this is family. This is families within population. That's what I tried to do here, is you have the individuals in a UK biobank or all of us, which they are kind of not related to each other. But in our case, they all are in families, right? So you have families, which means that you can color the families by the genetics, by the phenotype, and you know families that would have an incidence of cancer or incidence of rare disease. And so you can then even use linkage or all the family algorithms, the power of families that is not normally used in popGen can be used in this data set. So actually the power of discovery here is much more increased through this popFam idea, and what we are doing right now is to get these 650,000 people into families, right? Of course you can call it and you can decide, core families or wider families. Then you go to the Magalhães, which is the electronic health records. You populate these families within disease, and then this is the power that you can go into disease and get all these families together, and you can go from there. So that's definitely something that is very, very powerful within this data set. So an example of another poster that was presented in ASHG last week. This was we are just now trying to get some analysis out of this data set, because the first 3 years, because this 650,000 genomes were done in 3 years, and the first step, of course, was production, pretty much. And now we are starting to do some more analysis. This is 40 trios ONT on de novo mutations. Against the trios were just matched, not on purpose, but by the fact that we got the individuals in the data set, and so we realized that were trios, they were all in ONT, and then we look into deletions to understand de novo deletions, and then we checked how many of those deletions were in genes, how much were in medical relevant genes, and of course then you can go to Magalhães, understand whether those deletions indeed link to any specific disease from these individuals. This is the largest copy number, ancestry map plot on long reads, 80,000 long reads, the largest data set in the world for that. You can see that the Middle East is in the middle of the 1,000 genomes, and there is a link with some Indian, which is known from population, and also some African link a little bit, although of course we need to do much more research on this data set. Just two very small details, very small notes, which it needs way more research, but I thought since this is a longevity talk, it would be interesting to see. One is, which is known, but it's interesting to see that the Y chromosome goes down deeply with age. So we all talk about, menopause and whatever, but the men clearly also have a big decrease into the Y chromosome with implications that would be known. Women are not losing any chromosome from that point of view. And here just a very simple machine learning exercise on methylation. This is the Horvath features. We didn't look for any new features, which we'll have plenty, because of course this is the largest methylome, and so we'll have many new features that correlate with age, but this was just a machine learning on the Horvath to make sure that we are getting it correctly. And we are, because you can see a very strong correlation between this very simple model and methylation. This is, as I said, there is M42 is very large, and there is a very strong component on AI that puts it all together. And this is some of the programs that we are doing, large foundation models in many medical, clinical records, etc. And I think I'm done. And of course, Abu Dhabi is a place where this type of things happen. This is Abu Dhabi 50 years ago, and this is Abu Dhabi exactly on the same place, and you can see that there is a very large difference in the old countries like that. And thank you for the volunteers that gave them. Sorry.